So usually when a government wants to goose the economy, they pass a bill or cut taxes. But apparently the new strategy is to treat the Federal Reserve chairman like a low-level mob associate who didn't, kick up enough protection money. We are watching the Department of Justice being weaponized, like not to fight crime, but to fight interest rates, effectively holding a gun to the head of the global economy because the administration's polling numbers are, well, softer than the landing they were promised. So yeah, we need to talk about what just happened in Washington, because Jerome Powell, a man whose usual public demeanor falls somewhere between accountant at a funeral and sedated librarian, just released a video that looks less like a monetary policy update and more like a hostage proof of life tape. On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Fed with grand jury subpoenas, claiming this is about a building renovation. Yes, really, but Powell is taking the unprecedented step of calling their bluff live on camera. So, right, let's watch what happened, and I will give you my take later in the video.
Good evening. On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June. That testimony concerned in part a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings. I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. It is not about Congress's oversight role. The Fed, through testimony and other public disclosures, made every effort to keep Congress informed about the renovation project. Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike. In every case, I have carried out my duties without political fear or favor, focused solely on our mandate of price stability and maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do, with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people. Thank you.
If you are watching that and thinking it sounds like the plot of a straight-to-DVD political thriller where the bad guys have taken over the government, you are right. But honestly, to understand how dangerous this is, you have to look past the headline and understand the legal mechanism they are trying to exploit. Here is what you need to know. The president cannot simply fire the Federal Reserve chair. Under Section 10 of the Federal Reserve Act, the chair can only be removed for cause. Historically, and according to legal precedent, cause means inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. It does not mean, I don't like your interest rates. The Supreme Court, going back to Humphrey's Executor 1935, has generally protected independent agencies from being fired at the president's whim. So here is the strategy, I guess. Since they can't fire him for policy, they have to manufacture malfeasance. That is where this renovation story comes in. I looked into this multi-year project Powell mentioned. The Federal Reserve has been renovating the Eccles Building and the 1951 building for years. It's a massive kind of bureaucratic construction project that has been public knowledge and subject to congressional oversight for half a decade. To suddenly claim, years later, that testimony about drywall and plumbing is a criminal conspiracy worthy of a grand jury is, the legal equivalent of arresting someone for jaywalking because you want to seize their car. And let's look at the timing, right? We are in a midterm election year, 2026. Interest rates are the primary lever for cooling inflation or heating up the economy. By threatening Powell with indictment, the administration is trying to force him to resign so they can appoint a loyalist who will slash rates, artificially juice the stock market before November, and deal with the resulting hyperinflation later. It is, not gonna lie, a smash and grab robbery of the American economy. The administration knows they can't win the economic argument, so they are trying to criminalize the argument itself. They are threatening to put the man in charge of the dollar in handcuffs because he won't turn the Federal Reserve into a campaign donation machine, if that makes sense. So what does this actually mean for you? If the Fed loses its independence, the dollar in your pocket becomes a political toy. When central banks start printing money to help politicians win elections, the result is always the same: inflation that eats your savings alive. Imagine going to the grocery store and paying $15 for a gallon of milk because the president wanted the stock market to look green on election day. It's like burning your furniture to heat the house for one night. You'll be warm for a few hours, but then you have nowhere to sit, Globally, this is catastrophic. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency because investors trust that it isn't manipulated by politicians. If the world sees that the Fed chair can be indicted for not obeying the White House, that trust evaporates. Countries will dump the dollar, interest rates on our national debt will skyrocket, and the US loses its economic superpower status overnight. We are flirting with becoming a banana republic. Just without the tropical climate. To shave a quarter point off the prime rate, to get a slightly better headline in the Wall Street Journal, they are willing to torch a century of institutional credibility and risk the stability of the entire global financial system just to bully one man into submission. It is an act of breathtaking arrogance and desperation. Right now, Jerome Powell is standing his ground. He is effectively daring the Department of Justice to arrest him for doing his job. It is a standoff between the rule of law and raw political power. This isn't about office buildings. This isn't about testimony. This is about whether we are a country of laws or a country of men. It is a test of whether our institutions can withstand a direct assault from the very people sworn to protect them. If they can indict the Fed chair for renovations because they don't like the interest rates, imagine what they can do to anyone else who stands in their way. Just don't use a hairdryer in the bathtub while you think about it, okay? Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.